all you cool cats and kittens. Just kidding, you guys. I'm not Carol Baskin. This is Arabella with Weekend Creative here. A lot of you have been asking us lately to share a little bit more about our retouching process and kind of, take you through what it is to edit one of our photos. So I thought this would be a really good opportunity to show you guys how we do that. So just to give a little background info, the image that we're going to be working on today is from a shoot that we did back in late February with one of our creative gals, Claire. She actually just recently started her own business. She's an amazing experiential designer and brand photographer, but she is going to be launching soon her business called Moodelier. Basically, she has designed these gorgeous props, both coming in in life size for pop-up experiences and all that fun stuff, but also in smaller sizes, which can be great for store displays or even home decor, or for like us that we're going to be using them for props in our product photo shoots. So we decided to pick Boy Smells Candles as the product that we're going to be featuring in this shoot. We are big believers in shooting for fun and just making sure that you are always staying creative, and doing fun shoots on the side just for you is a great way to build your portfolio. So we decided to do this fun shoot, and we're really excited to be putting it out soon. I've actually edited already some photos from this session. We picked 3 scents from one of Boy Smells collections. So we are going to be working on this image. I actually have not edited this image, so we are literally just going to go right in. You're going to get to see my process and kind of what I'm thinking of doing for this photo. So let's just jump right in. So first of all, as you've noticed, we are in Lightroom right now, and I've imported every single image that I know I'm going to be using for this session. And typically I like to start in Lightroom just because it is easier for me personally to batch edit. I find that a lot of the adjustments that I'm going to be making that I'm going to apply to all of the images typically is easier to do in Lightroom. So I do have 2 images here, both of which are important. So the reason that we have this image here with this big old gray thing in the image is this is a gray card. If y'all don't know, basically a gray card making sure that you get a shot with a gray card is super useful, because having a gray card will make it easier for you to adjust the white balance later in post, which just basically means you're adjusting the colors and making sure that they're exactly what they're supposed to be. As of right now, you can kind of tell that the image is like a little bit cool. At least, I can tell that because I know what the colors were when we shot them. And so easiest way is just to go up to the section here in treatment in basic and grab this little dropper tool and just click on that gray card, and you can tell that it warms it up just a little bit, kind of where it's supposed to be. And that to me is easier than trying to mess with the sliders of temperature and tint. So super easy. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I always go down to lens correction, and I'm always checking off remove chromatic aberration and enable profile corrections. And you can tell that it just fixes kind of that vignetting happening around, and fixing that lens distortion. And the reason I check off remove chromatic aberration is because usually sometimes some lenses do this more than others, but sometimes your subject might have like this weird like green or purple haze or outlining, and so that kind of takes care of that. So that's literally pretty much it that I'm going to be doing for this image, at least. Most of what I do tends to happen, in Photoshop. So this is pretty much the extent of my editing in Lightroom, because typically all of our sets and all of our photos, require additional editing. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down here to this icon, right click, develop settings, and then copy settings. So obviously this is not the image that we're going to be working on, but I'd like to copy all those settings that I just did on that, and making sure that I don't have, any of those, these specific edits that, would only make sense when you're editing like one single image. So this is kind of just what I have on default, and so I'll just go ahead and copy it. I'll go over to the image that I'm working on, and I will do develop settings, paste settings, and you'll see that it will just apply everything that I had done on the other image, which is great. And now I'm ready to go into Photoshop. So I am going to go to edit in Adobe Photoshop 2020, and I'll just wait for that little, transition. I love that Lightroom and Photoshop can talk to each other, and you can just go back and forth, go from Lightroom to Photoshop and back if you need to. So yeah, now we have our image open. So the first thing that I know that, from editing some of the other images that I am going to be cropping this down to 4x5. But before I even start any of that, or before I even duplicate my layers or any of that, I always make sure that I have my rulers turned on. If you don't have that, you can access them by clicking on View and making sure that rulers is checked off. I obviously have them on, so just make sure that that's off. The reason that I bring that up is because you can actually create guides using those rulers, which is really nice. And those guides I like to do, at the start of my image, because sometimes I need to tweak things. Some things might be off, or, might look a little funky. So, for example, I can tell that it's just like a slightly off, very slightly though, kind of just place that there. And once it's placed, you can't move it from this tool, but if you go to the move tool, you'll be able to move it. So, and yeah, basically I am just, clicking on the ruler, pressing down and dragging, and just kind of placing where I think I might need to adjust certain things. This one's pretty spot on. And this one right here maybe could use a little bit of tweaking. And here we go. This one maybe as well. Take a tiny bit. Okay. And so I'm just going to, first of all, go ahead and go to the crop tool. I got rid of that little guide because I don't want any of my tools snapping to that guide. So click on crop, and of course I have the 4x5 already set, but I'm going to go back to original ratio. And there's this little tool called the straighten tool up here that I love because it just kind of helps straighten out the entire image. And it does it by grabbing, as you click from one point to the other, it like fixes itself, which is awesome. So this is a super, super slight, not even, close adjustment, but it makes me feel better. So super, super easy. And there we go. There's that one right there. Maybe it needs a little bit of adjustment there. This one's pretty close still. That one's great. Actually, this one got fixed pretty well too. So I probably don't even need to mess with that one. This one does still need a little bit of adjusting. So the way that I adjust, some of these is simply by going to my rectangular marquee tool, or if you're on Mac, which by the way, I'm a Mac girl, so sorry, I don't know any of the PC shortcuts, just Mac only, but I will try to show manually as well, as much as I can. But yeah, typically, you can select the entire thing by dragging or by clicking Command A. So now I'm going to transform the whole image, right? So you can either click Edit and Free Transform, or on Mac, Command T. And I like to try a couple different things, but for right now, I think I might use the warp tool. And one of the cool things that Photoshop did this year is added more grids, or added grids to the warp tool. Before it used to be this was the default and you could only move these little points here, but they've added some more grids, so it's super cool because it's easy to adjust. And you can make even finer adjustments if you know, go a little bit on the higher. So I'm going to try 4x4 and see how that goes. Being very mindful of doing very minor adjustments. So I'm going to grab this point here on the bottom right, seeing if I can drag it a little bit to meet that to that guide as much as possible. Okay, maybe I need to do a little bit more. And maybe move this one over a little bit. Perfect. And maybe I'll bring this one in a little bit. And I am not too worried about, you know, creating this little white area here because I'm going to end up cropping it anyway, so it's not going to be, you know, too big of a deal. And then I'm going to try this one out just a tad bit. Okay, perfect. You know, we try to get close, but it's okay. You know, we do what we can. Okay, and I'm gonna move this one over so I can get that one closer to the guide. Perfect. Okay. Maybe I'll bring this one a little bit back. And sorry guys, I'm just talking to myself here a little bit. But we do what we can. Okay. So once you're satisfied with your adjustments, and you can just press enter. So I'm pretty satisfied with this. So I'm just going to go and hit return, enter, and that does it. So one quick easy way to remove all these guides, because we don't really need them anymore, is to go to view, and then clear guides. So easy peasy. And then now I can crop. So of course, like I said earlier, I'm going to do a 4x5, and I'm going to switch the orientation so that it's on horizontal, and oops, go right here to snap it to that top part, snap this, and I'm just gonna kind of drag a little bit over to the right. And for this particular image, I'm not too worried about not having the candle kind of right in the center. I actually kind of really like that it's a little bit off to the side. Personally, I love how everything is balanced in this image, from, you know, the fabric to the shapes and all that fun stuff. So I'm not too worried about it not being completely to the center, but I do want to shave off some of the top because it is top heavy. So I will just bring it down a little bit, and then I press enter. And now we can get started with our editing. So first things first, of course, you know, no destructive editing. So the Command J for duplicating a layer. You can also do this by duplicating the layer, your background layer, and hitting OK. And then, of course, practicing good file naming. You know, always renaming our layers to whatever we're doing in that layer. So in this case, we're going to be cleaning. So majority of our work, you know, is going to be retouching certain little things, but I'll try to go over, let's see. So the first thing that I noticed is I have this kind of bottom edge here that I want to get rid of. Multiple ways that you can do this, of course. A lot of retouching for us is typically going back and forth between the spot healing brush tool and the patch tool, and sometimes the stamp tool, but typically these two are what I am going back and forth on. So for this, I can easily do, you know, the patch tool, grab a big selection here, and then just drag up. That seems to take care of it in a, you know, really good way. But I'm gonna actually test out doing content aware. So by content aware. So I'm going to go ahead and click on polygonal lasso tool, and I'm just going to select everything that I want to be gone. And there we go. And then I'm going to right click inside that selection, and I'm going to do fill. And it's already set to content aware, so I'm just going to hit OK. Sometimes Photoshop does a really good job of knowing what you want it to do. Sometimes it doesn't, so you just always got to try a couple things. But that actually did a pretty good, ooh, that did a good job. Okay, I like it, I like it. I could tell that it looks a little funky here, so I'm going to adjust that with the patch tool. Actually, I'm going to do the spot healing brush tool here first. Just going to fix that little bit and do the patch tool as well. So patch tool to just kind of fix these little sections right here that look a little off. And there we go. Pretty good. Not bad at all. Okay. And then looks like, let's see what we can do next. Okay. Sometimes I like to fix all of the kind of more detailed things first before I do the more minute things, which would be more of like the dust and all that stuff. So I quickly just want to show you guys. So for example, I'm already seeing this curving here from the box. I am going to liquify it. So first of all, I am going to go here and oops, I'm just going to grab that spot healing brush tool and go over it, see if it fixes it. Yep, there we go. Great. That looks awesome. Okay. There we go. Okay, great. So now I'm ready to liquify. So you can go over to Filter, Liquify. And what I'm going to do is use this little tool right here, which is the forward warp tool. And I'm going to zoom in. And I want to zoom in just enough to be able to see where I need to, right? So I'm going to grab a pretty big brush. And I'm clicking not here on the actual box, but on the fabric, because that's what I'm going to kind of push in. Because I want to make it nice and straight and not so curved. So using that, I'm just going to kind of go in. And there we go. Easy peasy, right? And then I actually just noticed right here that this isn't super, so I'm going to kind of fix that as well, just by using the push tool. That looks pretty good. So I always like to see what it looks like preview-wise, and that looks awesome. Yeah, that looks really straight now. So hit OK, I'm satisfied, and there we go. And then the next thing that I'm noticing is that I want to try to remove this. So let's see if I can use this polygonal lasso tool. So I'm just going to try and outline where the edge of the box is supposed to be technically be, and go around the section that I'm going to be kind of removing or kind of smoothing out. So of course I always like to smooth my selection because if I'm going to copy and paste something, I don't want it to look pixelated. So I go over to select and mask, and I'm going to smooth it out by 2 or 3 and see how that looks before I did that. Pixelated, not pixelated. It's great. Okay. And now I'm just going to grab my selection and move it over to a spot where I think it's, you know, where I want it to kind of duplicate it. So then I'm going to copy and paste, and I'm going to kind of drag it over to where I want it to be. And that looks pretty good right there. So I am going to just go ahead and merge it down. And now I'm just going to go over it with patch tool and fix a couple of the little areas that I want to fix. And that did a pretty good job. That's awesome. You know, it's always about like testing different things because you never know what's gonna work. Okay, and then maybe I'll fix this as well over here. Want it to look a little bit more clean. Oop, that is not looking good, so I'm going to use the patch tool. Oops. Okay, that looks pretty good. Go back to spot healing brush tool. See if I can fix this little corner right here. Sweet. That looks pretty good. Awesome. And there we go. Pretty neat, huh? Okay, so that's pretty much that. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, I mean, that pretty much takes care of it. And now we're just gonna get in the bulk of it all. You know, so of course this whole section right here, I'm gonna try and speed up for you guys because I don't want you guys to painfully watch me edit every single thing. But just as a reminder, you guys, like literally always clean your backgrounds, always clean your props, clean your products, you know, keep a microfiber cloth and clean everything. And wear gloves. Seriously, wear gloves all the time, because literally there's a difference, you know, like the amount of time you can spend on removing dust and imperfections in an image can be difference of, I don't know, 20 to 30 minutes versus, and just the dust retouching alone, 20 to 30 minutes to maybe even like an hour. Sometimes it's that bad. So I 100% encourage everyone to, you know, wear those gloves, clean the heck out of everything, and you know, your retoucher or you will thank yourself. So yeah, so okay, we are gonna get into the thick of it now, and it's gonna just be a whole lot of spot healing and patch tool. So let's get started. One more thing I wanted to talk about actually is one trick that helps me a lot when I'm retouching dust is being able to create a layer, an adjustment layer. I do a levels adjustment layer. Basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to be darkening the image and bringing down all of those highlighted kind of more brightened areas of my image and darkening them, because that is how I'm going to be able to spot any imperfections a little bit easier than if I were to just do it in that normal layer. So layer, new adjustment layer, levels, and this is what I'm going to use to, you know, just double check everything. I'm going to darken that, grab that middle slider and just bring it over. I mean, it's going to look a little crazy, but that's okay. We just need it to be a little bit darker, and we're going to bring down that brightness as well. So bringing down that white marker from the second slider. Just bringing it a little bit down, and it just makes it a little bit easier to see some of those imperfections. And I always toggle between, you know, seeing it and not seeing it, so that I can also then retouch any of the darker area. Yep. So you know, just using that will help us to see all of those little guys that we wouldn't normally see when it's off, for example, like kind of right here. So all right, well then we are ready to get started. All right, so now that we've finished the bulk of our editing, we are now ready to do a couple of more adjustments as we move along to the final product. So definitely don't need this levels layer anymore, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete it. And yeah, so we've got our clean layer here, and then the next step, that I usually do in my process is dodging and burning. So there's multiple ways that you can do this. I actually just like to work straight onto the image. I know that's not really, the best way, at least, it kind of seems a little destructive. But for me, it's just easier personally to see what I am dodging and burning. And so I'm just going to show you kind of how I do it. So typically I will just duplicate that layer, that clean layer, and I'm going to call this one dodge. So I'm going to grab my dodge tool over here on the left hand side, and I am just going to brighten up some of the things that I feel like should be brightened up. And making sure that I have a soft round brush and I have my highlights selected. I usually go back and forth between midtones and highlights depending on what I'm dodging. But sometimes shadows as well if I feel that some shadows are a little bit too dark, but typically just highlights. And I like to get a pretty big brush because I only want to do like one swoop, per dodge, if that makes sense. So I'm just gonna kind of brighten up that little label there, give it a little bit of oomph, and same thing on this label. And I can tell actually that it's kind of bright right down the middle, so I'm only going to worry about brightening up the left hand and the right side. And then maybe a little bit more, and I'm actually going to go over to the midtones and just kind of brighten up a little bit, make it a little bit more even. Okay, great. So I am also going to, I also like to just kind of go over it onto the props too sometimes. So I'm going to go back to highlights, and I'm just going to do little clicks here and brighten up these little props and give them a little bit more color too. So it just kind of makes them stand out a little bit, and then just going to keep on going. Okay, and now that I'm done with my burning, next thing that I want to do, so if you guys know or don't know, but basically anytime you're shooting candles, if you want to light your candle, shooting the candle flame is kind of tough sometimes, especially when you're working with strobes. It's likely not to show up at all. So you always have to kind of take a couple shots to expose not only for your set, but for the candle as well. But it's always a little bit tough. So I found like a little workaround with some of the other images that I've edited since I've done them already. I found a really cool candle light like vector. And I mean, you can just, it's already transparent. So you literally just prop it in and it looks really real. So that's kind of been something easy for me to do versus, trying to do it in camera. So I'm going to head over to that, and it's already transparent. So I'm literally just going to select it all, copy, and I'm going to paste it. And I am going to drag it over. And it looks a little crooked, so I'm going to transform it by Command T or using Edit Free Transform. I'm going to rotate it a little bit, and I'm also going to make it a little bit smaller too, because I don't think it's really supposed to be that big. But just kind of adjust it to where I think it's going to go. And now I'm gonna hide that candlelight layer, because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a layer mask so that it looks like it's actually in the candle. So clicking the previous layer, I'm going to grab my polygonal lasso tool, and I'm just gonna select kind of everything around, everything that I don't want to show. So clicking here on the edge, and this actually would have been easier if I turned off that layer, which is what I meant to do, but you know, we make it work. Let me just double check. So I move that. It actually looks pretty good. Let me just, there we go. Okay, and as always, I always like to soften my selection. So by doing that, I do select mask, and right now it's pixelated, but I want to smooth it out. Sorry, do it by 2 or 3, and press OK. And now, since I have that selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my layer 1, which is my candle light layer, and I am going to basically I'm going to invert the selection. So you can do that by Command-Shift-I on Mac, or you can go to Select and Inverse, and it's just going to select everything but this section, which is what we want because we're going to be creating masks. So now you go to the bottom right here, and I'm going to click this Add Layer Mask, and now it looks like it was already there. But actually, it doesn't look as realistic as I want it to look, so I'm actually going to adjust this. I'm going to go back, and oh, I do still want it to look like that, but I'm going to bring it up a little bit more, maybe like that much. And now I'm going to hide that layer again. I'm going to select that little bit again, just, you know, making sure that I'm carefully selecting the edge. And again, select and select mask, and smoothing it out. And now I'm going to do Command-Shift-I for inverse, which you could also do select inverse, and going back to my layer 1, clicking that, turning it on, and adding a layer mask. And now, there you have it. Now it looks like it was always there. So now that I'm ready to sharpen, because of course we've all gotta sharpen, especially for Instagram too. You know how Instagram always kind of messes with the quality and the sizing and everything. So now what I usually like to do is I like to copy merge the entire image right now, because I want to kind of sandwich together the previous layers and the candle layer so that I can work on a new layer for sharpening. So I do that by either selecting all or Command A, and then to copy merge you do Command-Shift-C on a Mac, or you can go up here to the edit section and then copy merged. So copy merged and then Command V or paste, and I'm going to rename that layer to high pass sharpening. So personally for us, we love that super high sharpened look. It's so beautiful and attractive to us. We love seeing that like texture really come through, and so we are going to show you real quick what we do. So if you go over to filter, you go to other, and you go to high pass here. So this is crazy. You don't want this. Typically we like to stay in between 1.0, 1.8, between that. Basically what is happening is it's kind of like sharpening up the edges, the outer edges of, and bringing up that texture in the image. So I'm going to keep it at 1.4 and I'm going to press OK. And now I'm going to change the blending mode. Typically most people kind of use overlay, which is very nice. It's still nice, but for some reason I love using linear light. It just looks so much more, just more sharpened and more textured. I don't know what it is about it, but I don't know if you can tell the difference. Look at how insane it like sharpened it, and like it just looks so beautiful. So that's pretty much all we do. Obviously this is kind of a little bit of an easier edit. You know, it's already such a stunning image, and all the colors and Claire's beautiful shapes really just make this whole shoot. And so yeah, hopefully you guys really enjoyed this editing process, and you know, let us know if you have any questions or anything. Hopefully I'm going to be showing a little bit more of our process in the future, and yeah, doing more little editing tutorials or edit with me videos. So yeah, we've come to the end of our editing process. Of course, then, you know, we always export. I can definitely show you that real quick actually. So we always actually export, save for web, especially for Instagram. So file, export, save for web, and it'll bring up this little window here. And I always like to, you know, always JPEG and somewhat of a high quality. Obviously you don't want to do anything too crazy because, again, Instagram compresses quality. So typically you always kind of want to keep anything used for the web under 1 megabyte. Just because, you know, if you're posting on your website or anything like that, like, you're more likely to make your website run slower. And of course, you know, Instagram is already compressing your quality, so might as well make it the size that, you know, works for that. So then I'm going to go over to image size, and I'm going to kind of play around with some different dimensions. It's probably typical, maybe around, let's see, perfect. Maybe I actually want it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to do that, 2000 by 1600. That's still at 4 by 5. And I'm going to hit save. And I'm going to call it Boy Smells and Memes 4 by 5. And there you have it. And you just press save and you are all set. And the cool thing is too, once you save this file on your Photoshop, what's going to happen is it's going to, you know, once you go back to Lightroom, you'll be able to see your final edited photo added to that session, because like I said, you can literally go right back into Lightroom if you wanted to do any more adjustments there. But hopefully you guys have enjoyed this tutorial, or this edit with me, I should say. And yeah, hopefully we'll be doing some more. So thanks so much for watching and tuning in, and thank you.